At the turn of the tide, I can see an innate desire. Sword in hand, warriors side by side, I can feel it, it burns like fire. Worlds collide, an unstable landscape, side by side, but that's what this man digs. Be it might and unlikely allegiance, we will fight because that's the best defense. No turning back, for such is our path. This day we find a glorious death. Glorious death. Our goal, our mission is clear, as we ride against a dark empire. By my soul, may the last thing they hear be the roar of this raging fire. Disobey the savagery mindset. Not today, we'll let loose and find it. Brutal will define our reaction. Rip out the throat of each one imperfection. No turning back, for such is our path.
Gooding Services has a bundle for all budgets. You can be fully protected with emergency response for just $49.99.
What is up, guys? Joker the Fool here. This is another episode of Braxcast Live. Of course, we got Student of God. I did see the G&G merch. Of course, I saw the whole Rip Ascend merch thing. It's a cool thing, but it's not really something that's like newsworthy to me in the context of this show. It's a cool thing. I like that they're doing it. I have the page up. I'll go through that eventually. We got Ram, who's not a fan of the long intros, but since it's Ripperverse related, it's making an exception. Live streams need to have long intros to allow people to like come in. Of course, like barely anybody watches my content. Of course, there are the regulars that do, and I have a little bit of an audience, but not much. But even for the small audience, it's like getting people into the chat. So you don't want to like start right at 7 because some people come in a couple minutes later. So you have that intro so that way people can come in. Of course, we got John's long box on the chat. If you want to come on, I can send you the link on Twitter if I can get the right freaking thing. We got it copied and so if you would like to come on to the stream, John, you're welcome to. Of course, if you just want to lurk, that is perfectly acceptable as well. But anyways, big news for the Rippaverse, I guess we'll just go right into this, is the Detention Crew. So, of course, there was a tease. I think last Braxcast, Andrew was saying there's some fun unannounced that we're dropping soon. Of course, John's driving. Of course, Long Island. You want to focus on driving, John. You never know what those New York drivers are going to do, man. Drive like complete dumbasses. But New Hampshire, I love living in New Hampshire because this happens several times. This shocks me as someone who was used to driving in New York, where I'll make a left turn and people will flash their brights at me to let me go. Yeah, it's happened to me several times. I'm like, every time it happens, I'm just shocked by it. Like, people will actually be considerate to you on the road. That just doesn't happen in New York. Everyone's an ass. Everyone's like, I got somewhere to be. Fuck you. Maybe I shouldn't have been that crass. But anyways, that's the attitude of any New York driver. Basically, anywhere you drive in New York, maybe a couple places upstate, people won't drive like complete mean idiots. But like New York City, Long Island, where I lived and learned how to drive, that's how people drive. And I was like a really calm, nice driver when I first started. And then I got more aggressive and meaner as I basically I had to, or else I would have gotten into more accidents than the one I did. Although the one accident I got into, it was rear-ended, so it wasn't my fault. But anyways, that's enough about me and ranting about driving. We're talking about the Detention Crew. So this is an all ages story about the Rippaverse. Is of course a group of teens that get superpowers. So it's like the New Warriors or whatever. Let's see. I got Horseman from Chuck Dixon. Yeah, I saw that. I hope you enjoy it. Horseman's a good story. We got Mike Has Bad Knees in the chat here. Of course, a regular along with Ram. Very appreciative. But this is a pretty good one. So we got the Wayne Carberry High that has seen its share of unruly students. But you've got, Jonathan Emmanuel Tucker, who is the death defier. So he's in prison. He gets released in prison, and part of his like parole, I guess. Hey guys, no notification from YouTube. Okay, well, you need to ring the bell. I'm not sure if you rang the bell or whatever. I've never told people to do that, but you ought to ring the bell, 1. And 2, follow my posts because I live stream basically at the same time. I'll do it 7 p.m. on Fridays. There might be some times where I'll make an exception. There's probably going to be 1 week where I'll take like a weekend trip and I'll do it on a Friday. So I'll have to live stream earlier in the week. But whenever that happens, I'll let you guys know like a couple days in advance when I'm doing Braxcast Live. So that way you guys can keep it in like that way you guys can know when it's happening and not rely on the notifications. And of course, if you follow me on Twitter, I post a link usually like within the hour it's about to happen. Sometimes it's like 5 minutes. Sometimes like this episode was like 40 minutes before. But I would, never rely on YouTube to be accurate, good with notifications. But there was some glitches with YouTube. The bell's rung. Notifications don't go through other channels as well. I mean, my channel isn't monetized, Garfield, so YouTube doesn't want you. Like, if you're going to give watch time, You want to give watch time to a monetized channel. Since my channel isn't monetized, you're just I'm just clogging up YouTube's bandwidth and wasting them money. So they would want you to watch content that isn't mine, and you're rebelling by watching my live stream instead of something that'll give YouTube that sweet ad revenue. But yeah, Ram pre-ordered Detention Crew and Alpha Core 2 this morning. And yeah, I am really liking the motif of this story. Of course, we watched the trailer, and I'm not going to like go because the audio isn't going to play because I just have it set up like that. But I want to go specifically, if I can find it, we're going to scrub through the video. Here we go. So again, we've got the Saskas are the writers for this story. And since they're Catholic, of course, he's praying the rosary, which is a very Catholic thing. Of course, Orthodoxy has the prayer ropes. I've got one like on the way. And all like the Orthodox specialty stores will take a really long time to ship the stuff out because it's all handmade. But anyways, the rosary is very much a Catholic thing. Of course, you see the beads and supposed to like you have all these prayers that you say. A lot of them are centered around Mary. Catholicism very much. Like a very high Mariology, not that like she shouldn't be honored, but that's a whole thing I won't want to get into. But anyways, to me, there is a very heavy Christian theme in the Rippaverse, and this story is going to play off of it. This Emmanuel character, of course, Emmanuel is a biblical name. It's a name that Christ was prophesied to have. It means God is with us, if I'm getting my Hebrew correct, or if it's either Hebrew or Aramaic. And Protestants, we just pray to God with no interference. Well, it's a whole theological thing, but there is reasons to use like physical objects during worship. It goes back to the Old Testament, right? You have the tabernacle, you have the Ark of the Covenant. So like the icons, think the way Catholics have their iconography and their prayer life and their spirituality can be misses the mark a bit. But for me, Orthodoxy, like my prayer life, having the icons, having like the incense, having these like physical objects that help you connect with God has been very helpful to me. Of course, you're welcome to disagree with that. I want to get like too much into it since I'm only a catechumen. I'm not supposed to be like lecturing people like this is the way you should be believing. But for me, you're always almost on the verge of talking about something else. Yes, I am. And it's because like I'm so scatterbrained and my mind is like in a million places right now, man. I've got so much going on and I'm like on the cusp of sanity. Didn't mean to derail. Yes, he did. But yeah, this is like one, like I went on the religious tangent because like I said, praying the rosary, but to keep it Rippaverse related, there's a lot of Christian themes in the Rippaverse. Of course, we see it very explicitly in Item number 3 when we learn that Item got his powers from a family member being healed by Jesus in Galilee during his earthly ministry. Intensely interesting. I'd love to see that as a backstory someday. And then, of course, Blood Roof has that religious motif to it as well. That's also very much a Catholic like inspired, like that's where the Saskas, because I said I believe they are Catholic. I know Ram, you're Catholic, so I'm pretty sure you can like vibe with me on this because you go to mass, you know the Catholic spirituality more than I do. I'm sure you pray the rosary. If you're a good Catholic, that's what you ought to be doing. Although I'm not in the position to like lecture anybody about that. But anyways, the Saskas are Catholic, so of course he's going to have the rosary. He's going to be a Christian character. So it's something that's interesting to me how this is going to play out. This character definitely seems, and like I said, his name's Emmanuel, which is it's a biblical name. God is with us. It's a name that Christ was prophesied to have. It's why you'll see like there are churches called like Emmanuel Church. There's one by me, like Emmanuel Lutheran Church. Let's see. I love the opening, the Blood Roof of Cain and Abel, beautifully drawn and extremely interesting. That's one of the things that I mentioned in my review of Blood Roof. It's a really well done story, and actually, if I can do this, and I'm a super professional person, we're going to go delving through my short box, and we're going to get. Where is Blood Roof number 1? And you guys can probably barely hear me since I'm not on the mic. And like I said. Here we go. Like I said, I'm the most professional live streamer ever. Anybody who says otherwise is lying. Oh man. But let's see. this is the scene that we're talking about, and let's see here. So, whoop, we've got this opening scene right here, and of course, one of the things I love, and if I can even point to it. But anyways, let's see here. Yes, there we go. So I love this lighting here, and this is the coloring that's done by Brett R. Smith for Blood Roof. Is if you see this like coloring where you can see like the light shining on Abel and not on Cain, it really shows how God prefers Abel's sacrifice Abel's sacrifice to Cain, and then of course Cain murders Abel. Why am I my brother's keeper? Then he's condemned, and that's like very early on in Genesis. It's like Genesis chapter 3. I reread Genesis recently, my Orthodox study Bible. I'm on Exodus. I've been very bad with reading the Bible, and like the stuff I want to read. That's like my theological texts, like Against Heresies by Saint Irenaeus. Because that's I shouldn't have chosen that one as like the first like church father to read. But anyways, keep it Rippaverse related, not rant about something else. That opening to Blood Roof is a really good one. And again, Blood Roof is very heavy on the Christian themes. And it seems like this story is going to be not necessarily the heaviest, right? To me, it's going to have like that, like it's going to have like a stint of that, so it's going to like somewhat show that, and if I can even get it, there we go. It's going to have this stint to it, like it's going to be part of the story, but this is an all ages story. It's got this like Archie comic book style to it, which I'm personally really liking this. Of course, other people are going to be like, well, the faces look too simplistic. It's not, good, because this is pretty starkly, not against, but this is a pretty stark departure from what the Rippaverse has usually been doing. So this is definitely going to be like, if you like, I think there's been a decent amount of consistency in the art style for the Rippaverse, and this is like a bit of a departure from that. But I think it's good. I'm personally vibing with it. Of course, I'm in my late 20s. I'm pushing 30. I kind of feel like an old man. I don't know what the 6'7" thing is that the kids are talking about. I when I hear Riz, I cringe. I don't relate to college kids anymore because I don't have ChatGPT. I didn't have ChatGPT to write my essays when I was in college. So one of the reasons I flunked out. So if I did, I probably would have just had to do. Yeah, it's the beard, man. It is the beard. People think I'm in like I remember this was years ago. One time I shaved, and someone told me you look 10 years younger. I'm like, what? So I look like I'm like 15. But no, it's like first time I thought I was like in my 30s. So I'll probably look like this until like I'm in my late 40s or so, and then I'll just roll out of bed one day and I'll just look like my dad. It's gonna be fun. But yes, like Student of God says, let's see. Kids love the style. I agree. And Ram says the art is growing on me. Still not my favorite, but I see why they went with that style for being all ages. I agree, Ram. I think it was definitely the right move to go. And of course, we've got Zaid Comics in the chat. Really nice to see you guys. And of course, you guys are probably live streaming. But if you guys want to, like, Brandon or Phil, you guys ever want to come on Braxcast, just shoot me a DM, and I'll send you guys the link. But yeah, it's really nice to see you guys. Let's see. I find this extremely intriguing, even though it's aimed towards a younger audience. The story and premise of a former villain teaching kids reminds me of a manga story. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly which one, but it is a really interesting premise to have like this reformed supervillain teaching kids how to use their superpowers. So I do find that to be genuinely interesting. So it's a good premise. I think you can have a lot of fun with it. And I definitely think this is, going to be a multi-parter. And the Sasukas are really good writers. Of course, people are going to be, you're so stupid, Joker, for saying that. You're a simp. You just want the Sasukas to, do X, Y, and Z with you, which, I've never had that opinion. But yes, indie comics need kids to get kids reading comics, John. And honestly, that's what the big two need to do. There was such a missed opportunity. You could have created a lot of lifelong fans, or not you, Marvel and DC. Because I was, and again, this is going to date a lot of people. I was 10 when the original Iron Man movie came out, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever, man. I would have been like, and I lived like within walking distance of a comic shop, and Marvel couldn't get me to pick up an Iron Man comic. Missed opportunity and a complete failure on the part of Marvel. The cost for this book, the cheapest. Oh, I'm doing it. It's $18 for the cheapest cover. So let's see. Actually, yeah, it'll be $20 with after today. It's 10% off because you got a sale going on for the first 24 hours. But it's going to be a $20 book, and that's 56 pages. So that plus shipping. If you're living in the States, you're probably going to be paying just under $30 for it. Of course, it depends on sales tax. New Hampshire doesn't have sales tax or income tax. Very nice. But plenty of places do. Yeah, it does need to be a bit cheaper, but yeah, it's harder to do that because they like to put out longer stories, and they do pretty good high quality prints. But yeah, let's see. I agree with this. 40-year-olds have kids, they can get into the hobby. Yeah, I think they can. I think this is something where I think something that's like this price is decently reasonable. But it would be nice if this was a bit cheaper. If this was like in the, if this was like $13 as its base price for the cheapest one, I think you could get more parents convinced to buy this. But this is, definitely a bit of a niche. They don't have the access to the print runs that Marvel and DC do, even though they've still got pretty good ability to do print runs, right? They've got, much more, power negotiating prices with the printer than, someone like you would, John, or someone, less pages, lower cost for kids. Yeah, but I think this is also just telling like a good story as well. So you got to have this like balance between like, we're making this for kids, we're going to make this as cheap as possible to get kids in, versus we want to make something that can appeal to Rippaverse fans like myself. I'm an adult. I'm going to read this. I got all the covers for it in the concept art book because, I'm that guy that covers everything Rippaverse related. Let's see, going to be going over some of the IGG changes. Yeah, I've seen that, man. I think it's hilarious. Like I said, I think I made a tweet. I was like wondering if I should like go to that guy and get my Cyberfrog free and Rainbow the Brute backings or pledges, I guess, whatever you call it, refunded. Because that'd be like, between the two of those, probably honestly be like closer to like 3 months of utilities I could pay for. It'd be nice to have that money just put it in the bank. God knows I've been spending money like a madman. Let's see. Yeah, Heroic Tales 2 is at the printer. I'm really excited for that, John. I can't wait to read and review that. Let's see, 60 pages for $20 is roughly $7 for a 20-page issue. But yeah, it being a little cheaper would be better. I do agree, Garfield. Like I said, it's just something where like making it as cheap as possible is going to compromise the quality of it. And again, it's also not something that's just for kids. It's all ages. So this is something for adults to read. This is something for fans of the Rippaverse to read. So you want to have that like narrative punch to it. And that means you're going to have a decent page count. And you also want the book to be of a decent quality, because that's, part of the brand of the Rippaverse is the fact that it's a high quality, that the books themselves are high quality. So yeah, let's see. That's just him talking to John. I think the cost is fine for 56 pages. Parents are buying it for their kids. Don't forget, John, that Dogman books are like 100 pages long. Yeah, Dogman. I remember Captain Underpants when I was younger. Back in like elementary school, because you have the book fair. I'm not sure if they even do they do this for the kids? Is it just all online these days? But you would get like the catalog of books, and then you go to the fair, and then you choose which books you would want to buy. I remember when I was in middle school, I read The Hunger Games, and my sister refused to finish Catching Fire. But I read it, and then I got Mockingjay, and I showed it to my sister. She was so mad at me because she's like, I couldn't get it until she finished it. And I'm not sure if she finished it to this day, but I read all 3 Hunger Game books. I got really into it in middle school, like just before the first movie came out. And it was back like, I don't know, it's like 2011 or so. Oh yeah, so they still do the book fair, volunteer at my kids. Yeah, okay. Mike, do they give out like the little paper pamphlet that has like a preview of what like Scholastic or whatever the publishing brand is? Because I 100% remember that. I'm just not sure if that's something that they do anymore because everything's online these days. Let's see, Dogman's super popular. I remember Goosebumps being huge in the 90s. Yeah, Goosebumps was a big thing. It's a little bit before my time, but I never read that. But even so, when I was growing up, I remember hearing Goosebumps and seeing some of the books. I don't think I ever got into reading them. I liked Harry Potter. I liked Percy Jackson. I loved Percy Jackson. That was my stuff. I almost got into trouble a couple of times because of reading it during class in middle school. Man, I remember like my math teacher's like, put it like, see you reading again, it's detention. But yeah, no, I loved Percy Jackson as a kid. That was my jam. And that's like around 15 years ago at this point. When I was like getting into those books. And they absolutely like that movie was so bad, man. It just ruined everything. But anyways, Marcus Henry, I don't believe I've seen you. Welcome to the stream. Really don't like the art, but the story sounds cool. Yeah, I mean, I do like the art for this. So again, this isn't going to vibe with anybody. This is definitely a much more blocky, like Archie type of style. And I can see why people would not like this, or people are going to have a hard time getting into this if it doesn't appeal to you. But that is what I would say. I say, but this is going to be like, it's bright, it's colorful, it's going to have much more of an appeal to kids, which is part of what they're going for. I think you can do all ages with cool art like Avatar: The Last Airbender without dumbing down the art. I wouldn't say the art's being dumbed down, Marcus. I think they're just going for a specific style. Now, of course, The Last Airbender has a really special place in my heart because that's a show I watched like while it was going on. I remember I watched like season 1 or book 1, I ought to say, and like, are they ever going to get to the Northern Water Tribe? And it took me like a long time to catch up with the rest of the show. I think when season 3 was finished airing, like in like 2008 or whatever, and this is like, what is this, like 16-ish years ago, maybe even like longer than that. Actually, like, it's like closer to like 20 years ago at this point when the show like finished airing. They had this like epic like marathon. That's when I catched up with the show. And then of course you watch like the finale. So epic, man. Last Airbender is really good. And this is, the thing Marcus is saying is that you can have a show like that show, Avatar: The Last Airbender, that has a really competent art style and still has this appeal to kids. And also a really mature storyline. Like dealing with war, genocide, like romance as well. These problems that teenagers are going through. Really all encapsulated in this story that's very easily digestible to kids. And of course, you got the cool action scenes and everything. Yeah, Airbender is pretty cool. And the thing is, I got my dad into watching that show. And my dad was like, you got to watch the Netflix live action version. It's so good. Because I remember he actually took me and my sister, I think my little sister, to watch the M. Night Shyamalan movie of Last Airbender. That movie was garbage, man. Everybody hates that movie. It's just complete trash. And we kind of, I was like, it was so bad. But my dad was like, it's not like this. It's so good. And it's like, well, why do I need to watch the live action Netflix version of Avatar when I can just get out my Blu-ray box set and rewatch the show? And it's just perfect, man. Like, it was lightning in a bottle. And I agree. Legend of Korra happened. Super downgrade from Avatar. Let's see. The show was good for the first 2 seasons. I'd say I do kind of agree with that. I remember when Korra was first announced, you have like what Korra looking over Republic City. That's like, oh man, more Avatar, because it was like in 2012, so it was like 4 years after The Last Airbender finished airing. So it's like you kind of want more, and Korra was like decent. It's like, yeah, the first season was with the Equalists was interesting, but then yes, it devolved into Korra's dating life, and they completely just dropped the ball on having like this cohesive narrative. Like the Last Airbender has an extremely cohesive narrative that's told in like 3 acts, with each season being one of those 3 acts. And of course, each individual episode is done really, really good. But that this whole overarching like Aang getting out of the iceberg and having to master all the elements to defeat the Fire Lord. It's just that's what grounds the entirety of the show. And then you've got all these little storylines that are just done so well. And of course, the style is really good. The voice acting is fantastic. The humor is really good. I mean, I love Sokka, like Sparky Boom Man, all the funny stuff that he says. It just makes the show like so cohesive and so perfect in my mind. Korra does not have that. It has elements of Avatar, like you got Mako and Bolin. Korra is a decently interesting character, but without that cohesive narrative to ground the story and to truly develop the characters, it just became a mess because it was initially going to be a mini series with those 12 episodes. But then they, people liked it. It's like more Korra, and Nick greenlighted them to have more Korra. And they just didn't know what to do. And that's why it was as much of a mess as it was. It's just my opinion, though. SJWs were the bad guys in season 1 of Korra. She was fighting Antifa. But yeah, I mean, the animation for Korra is so fantastic. And since it was in like 16:9, I would say arguably like the scenes of it look better than Avatar. So it's like really nice to look at, but it's not nearly as cohesive and well told of a story as the original series is. And with the legacy of Korra, this whole like Avatar Studios making a new show, and of course with all the because I think the creators of the show they were woke back then, and the ending of that show was basically like them trying to imply like a lesbian love scene between Korra and Asami, if I can remember correctly. So I think like these days probably going to try and do something more explicit, since most of the people who are fans of Avatar are around my age, people who were like in elementary school, like kindergarten, when the show was airing. So they're probably going to have more of a leeway to make one that's more geared towards adults than they did back in the day. But I mean, we'll see what Viacom wants to get away with. Sorry, gotta keep the throat non-sore, and we're supposed to be talking. Now I'm talking about Avatar, man. Non-benders rising up against a bender-dominated society set up some intriguing conflict, and Amon as a mysterious leader reminded me of a socialist uprising revolution. Yes, but one of the things I loved was like the Avatar parody on YouTube with Amon. Like, and he always pronounced his name wrong. It's like, everybody give it for Amon. It's like, it's Amon, everybody. And the guy was like going like, the Avatar has like, all these past lives. And you think like their senses of humor would meld. So he'd be able to laugh at any joke. And he tries to tell like a stupid joke. But there's like the parody, and then of course like there's the whole like the parody of like the Last Airbender, and it's like the scene where their canoe breaks. It's like, damn it, Katara, I told you not to buy a canoe from Walmart. Man, but yeah, Avatar, that scene like in the actual show is the first time in my life I ever heard the word sexist. And now of course I've heard it millions of times after that, much to my chagrin. Let's see. I think it's the reason why manga dominates when it comes to new generations. They take the kid art deadly serious and make it look cool in the process. Yeah, no, manga's got this like really good way of appealing to everybody. You've got the big eyes, you've got the flashy scenes. Of course, the character designs are legendary. Especially we're talking about like Dragon Ball or One Piece or like Digimon, Pokemon. These character designs are legendary, man. They're like stuff you can only dream about if you're a creative. What the Japanese have been able to do with manga, and of course even like the more recent stuff like Attack on Titan and Demon Slayer, they should have this mass appeal, and because it's just so well done, and it just has like I said, just these really great creativity to it. Whereas I can agree with this. This is like a specific style that it's going to jive with a lot of younger people because it's bright, it's colorful, it's simple. But it doesn't have that like universal appeal that manga is going to. So I can see why this is going to turn off a lot of people. For me, I personally like it. I don't think it's something that really throws me off. And I do like what is it, the Death Defier, this Emmanuel character. I think his character design is really cool. But I would love to see like his past done by someone like like a Will Conrad or like a Cliff Richards or someone who's got a more serious style telling like his past as a supervillain, because he seems like an interesting character and he's got an interesting character design. So I would have 100% loved to see him like in a more serious, mature story with a style that correlates to that. Let's see. Yeah, it's also because the manga is such a broad genre. There's manga for every audience: cooking, romance, action, sports, degenerates, everyone. Well, yeah, that manga, that's the hentai, man. And oh man, I consumed way too much. And there are dirty words in Japanese that I know, because of like just the amount of garbage I subjected my brain to. And Japanese Duolingo. There's some words I actually know, like because of all the anime I've watched, like hontoni means really. It's something like I've watched like a lot of romance anime, and it'll say like hontoni ski desu, like daisuki, or you could say aishiteru, which means like I really love you. But yeah, like hazukashi is one that says in a lot like the dirty stuff, because something will happen and the girl will say hazukashi because it's embarrassing what's happening. But yes, that's something I'm gonna have to answer on Judgment Day. All the stuff, all the garbage, and I like every single thing. I'm gonna have to be like, why were you doing this? Oh, you're like, oh, I'm not looking forward to it, but it's gonna happen. Manga has many different art styles. Some have chibi art style, which is super simplistic, and some of the Demon Slayer style of art, which is super detailed. Yeah, basically everything in between. But a lot of like, we're talking about like Demon Slayer, Dragon Ball. It's just the character designs have just this great appeal. Let's see. I think even Scale, the artist for Dirty Deeds, has a fantastic blend of Western and Eastern style. I think Evan style is it's just really good. It was just such a solid story to read Dirty Deeds. Of course, Carol wrote a really good story, but Evan's art just looked. It just had this detail to it. Like you had these really thick, bold lines. The character design is really good. I'm not sure if let's see, not sure you want to admit to watching romance anime. I'm going to say My Dress Up Darlings. It's good, man. I liked it, and I haven't watched season 2 because I'm so behind on like anime. But that's dope, man. Like again, it's fun to watch, man. It's fun to vicariously live through animated Japanese teenagers. Man, but no, I just think like when you have one that's really good, it's just fun to watch. And again, I'm going to admit to like that. Like again, if people want to make fun of me, people are going to make fun of me anyway. They're going to call me a retard because I read these comic books. And I got like over 200 people watching right now on Twitter. And yes, like I like stuff like My Dress Up Darling or Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out. Or let's see. Oh yeah, Zero no Tsukami. That's a fun one. That's like one of the first like isekais. Of course, speaking of isekais, you've got the Demon Lord anime. That was a pretty fun one. I can think of at least 2 reasons why that was a good anime to watch. If you know, you know. But anyways, yeah, Detention Crew is going to be. I think this is going to be a good story, man. Despite this art style, like I said, it's not going to jive with everybody. But I think it's being done well. Like it's not something that's being phoned in. It's not art that's being dumbed down. It's just intentionally choosing this different style that, like I said, it's not going to jive with everybody because you got Matteo Lucetti on the art, Michael Woods as the colorist, and then Invisible Art Studios as always as letterer. And then of course we can go over these covers here. We've got this cover A being done by Kanan White, and I think this is a fantastic cover. This is probably the best cover because Kanan knows what he's doing. And then we've got we got cover. Well, we can go to Detention Crew Part 1. And then let's see here. That's cover A. That's cover B, which is Jeans Holland, and then this is cover C. So cover C is done by the artist, and I like this cover right here. This is, I think, a decent cover. Cover B, of course, is Jeans Holland. This is a pretty good one that I particularly like. But I still think this A cover is probably the best one because, of course, Kanan's doing it, and Kanan knows what he's doing. Let's see. I like isekais, is what Mike Has Bad Knee says. Drop me into a fantasy world to make me completely overpowered. Yeah, I think it's fun, but they've been overdone, and I think the Japanese even like poke fun of themselves, like, I died and I'm reincarnated as a toaster now, or like these ridiculous isekai premises. But anyways, I used to be like really into it. But even when I was into it, I was never like super into it because you've got people who will like keep up with what's going on every season. And anime is released in seasons, which is why like a typical like season for an anime is going to be 12 weeks, or 12 episodes because one for every week. Some are 10, some are like 13. There are Yeah, some are 10, some are 13, but 12 is typically what it is. But yeah, I got into like all so many of the anime that would just release like one run of 12 episodes and then nothing else. Um, and one of the ones I really like, Spice and Wolf. People, oof. The fact they're like bringing Spice and Wolf back. Has anybody heard like anything? Because I remember one of the things I was like telling myself was like the future would be so good. It's like, oh yeah, the new season of Spice and Wolf came out and it's dope. And I'm not sure if they're like redoing the show, or they're just making another season of Spice and Wolf because I really like Spice Wolf. It's probably like one of the first animes that I watched that wasn't Dragon Ball, but that was really good. And then, guys, there's also I don't probably know you are a high school, but if you are a high school student and you've been assigned Romeo and Juliet to read, and you don't want to read it because you're a high school student, you don't want to read anything. There's an anime adaptation of Romeo and Juliet called Romeo X Juliet. Now, if you watch the Romeo X Juliet anime and you do any school assignment based off of that, you're going to fail. But it's really good, man. It's like 26 episodes, I think, and it's pretty good. It's tragic because it's Romeo and Juliet. But I liked it. I remember really liking it when I watched that when I was a teen. That was a fun one. And it was like a really serious romance story. William Shakespeare is in it, which is funny. But yeah, it's called Romeo X Juliet. I would recommend watching that one. It's a good anime. Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland, and Labyrinth would be considered isekai. Yeah, actually, they technically would. I haven't watched Labyrinth. That's like an 80s movie. Isn't that like, didn't Jim Jensen do that one? Alice in Wonderland, of course, I'm familiar with. And of course, I know Wizard of Oz. I think, yeah, I remember when, this was when I was really young. It's probably this was back in like around 2003. We had our like den had termites, so it was torn down and it was renovated. It was like rebuilt. And like when it was first rebuilt, we had the TV in there. That movie that we watched was Wizard of Oz. This is like almost 25 years ago at this point. So yeah, that was but yeah, that was back in like around like 03, 04. So yeah, that was a long time ago. I remember that. I remember watching Wizard of Oz pretty clearly. David Bowie has some damn good songs in that movie. Dance Magic Dance is a banger. One David Bowie song I like is Starman. I'm not going to sing it. You get a copyright struck. But I love Starman. It's such a good song. Now that I like reminded myself that song exists, I'm probably going to listen to it after stream. It's such a good song. But that song is a banger. I haven't watched Labyrinth. I've heard good things. Well, I'm not sure if I've heard good things about it. I just know it exists, and I know people said it was good because of all the puppet work. Major Tom is also good. I've not heard of that one. But anyways, this is like the cleanup crew, or not the cleanup. Oh, that's clean. That's something I'm writing. Oh, spoiler alert, guys. You guys are going to copyright me. Man. But no, I wrote a short story. Called Cleanup in the Diner. It's on my I should check out Labyrinth. It's a classic. But yeah, I wrote a short story and called Clean Up in the Diner. I'm turning it into a full novel, even though I've really slacked on that. You guys gotta forgive me. My mind's a mess, and I love writing. I do the daily poll, so I write every day. But like the long form writing, I haven't had this like inspiration just like grip me. And that's what I need. I need to get back into it. But yeah, I mean, I feel like finally now I'm getting into a place where like my life I'm settling in, which is really, really nice for me. But like, yeah, I'm still, like I said, I've still lost like any semblance of sanity, and I just gotta fake it until I get it back. But anyways, it's a good in a way. Because it's not like I'm not doing well. It's just like there's been, a lot like my personal life has been it's been, I don't know, good. But it's also been like really, I don't know, let's say stressful. It's just been really confusing. That's the word to use. So I'm very confused in the state of my personal life. It's like, what do I do when it's like this? Um, and of course, it's probably going to have to deal. I don't say probably, but yeah, it does have has something to do with I don't know the opposite sex. Let's just say that. So whenever you're dealing with that, then it's like, oh boy, it's confusing. That's all I gotta say. I'm very confused, and again, it's just trickling into the rest of my life, and it's also like, you know, got to work every day, got to feed myself, got to pay my rent, and then lament that, the end of the month comes around, and I still haven't made basically any of the money back that I had to pay. I had when I paid the first rent for the first of the month. Oh boy. So yeah, no, things are just crazy right now. In a good way, and I'm doing well. But it's just like a really weird time in my life because I feel like I exclusively get into weird situations. But anyways, guys, this is of course the Detention Crew, which I think is going to be a pretty good story for the Rippaverse. Definitely like this all ages story now. I think you can definitely go for a different art style in the future. Not with the Detention Crew. I think whatever the story, whatever, I think Mateo is doing a good job. I think he should keep this style for the run of this, but more all ages stuff. Definitely think they can do something that has more of a universal appeal. That's what I'm certainly seeing. So you think of like Avatar: The Last Airbender is a great example of this. Dragon Ball, Pokemon, well, maybe Pokemon not so much, but certainly Dragon Ball is definitely a really good example of that. Like universal appeal. It has hit 750 books. Yes, it has, which is pretty good. And actually, since I'm an Ultra Mac, we can refresh. I got the updated counter, but yeah, we're still at 750 books, 24,000 sales, which again, not bad. But it's not like we're going to be, Alpha Core is at 2,000 books sold, $83,000 in total sales. So this is probably, I don't know, going to make around 150 to two in that run, in that entire run of it. You got to remember that Alpha Core 1 is selling for $20 at the lowest price. And then, of course, there was a discount on the first day of sales. And of course, since it's the number two, and it's been so long, I'm sure there are some people who will be like, well, I waited, it took this long. Might as well just wait for like the definitive Alpha Core and pick that up. I'm sure that's a mindset. Of course, there are lots of people who buy after the collection ends, once it's like just available to buy on the store. I know people have come to me on stream talking about that. So like again, not like again, but putting like all your stock into like this number or this number and using this as like the paint the Rippaverse as like abjectly failing is a bit ridiculous. But of course, people are going to just be determined to maintain that narrative because that's really the way they've been marketing their YouTube channels is by going off of this, which, I guess more power to you if that's what you want to do. But I do think we are talking about, like I said, Detention Crew. And I am, like I said, 100% on board with this. This is an interesting story. I like Emmanuel's character design. I do like the art. It's not like my favorite art style. Like I said, it's really simplistic. I think it's a good thing. And I agree, Garfield. So I let them see if we're just going to have fun over here. Again, I got like over 400 people are watching on Twitter. I wonder if they're like actually watching or this just like shows up in their feed. And it's just like playing silently in the background and nobody like cares what I'm saying on Twitter. I know the YouTube guy, you guys are always really tuned in to what I say. Like, we got Garfield, we got Mike Has Bad Knees, got Ram. Let's see. Go ahead. Talk about Indiegogo. Can you send me like a specific link to the policy changes, Student of God? And I'll give my take on it. But my whole take with like that is that there are certain people who have used Indiegogo as not really, I'd say intended purposes, but completely failed on providing to their consumer base. I'll go this. Um, like I said, Ethan Van Sciver, chronically late. There are people who backed Rainbow the Brute when it was like beginning, and now they're out of college. Like one guy was like, I graduated college since backing this. I'm not interested in it anymore. That's an abject failure. Now, of course, you can go on and say that Rainbow the Brute is going to be the best comic book ever made. It's going to be a masterpiece. It's going to be worth waiting every second for, which it could be the case. I just got no idea if it's going to be because the book isn't out yet. It's not even close to being done. And there was a point where he said it was going to be done in August, like August of I think August of last year. I remember it was around the time I got Gooding, the Polymath. I got that shipped to me in August, and I backed that book in June, man. So it's just like if you want to be productive and actually make the books good, make the books, you got to get them out to people for people to say they're good or bad. Let's see. Indiegogo website has updated. A lot of campaigns have been exposed to having less backers. Cyberfrog Free went from 7,500 backers to 4,300 backers. I saw that, and soon, I know Garfield. The thing with like Cyberfrog Free is that a lot of those, let's say, 4,300 backers, I'm one of them, and I'm never buying anything from All Caps Comics again. And I can guarantee you a good portion. Let's say, I don't know, I would imagine around like at least like 1,000 to 1,500 of those people who back Cyberfrog Free probably not coming back for anything else. It's not just like the Rippaverse fans. It's people who are like expecting to have Cyberfrog 4 at this point, and they still don't have Cyberfrog Free. And again, I like Cyberfrog. I really liked the Omnibus collection, warts and all. So I like his 90s stuff. Blood Honey, I thought was a decent story. Wrecked Planet was okay. It had a lot of, writing issues with it. Not a lot, but yeah, it could have been written better. The side stories could have been written better as well. Dark Harvest, I thought was like really mid. I guess that's a word the kids use. But yeah, it was really mediocre. There was just like the Vespers had like way too much dialogue. And the only thing that saved those pages that Eric Weathers is such a good letterer that he was able to lay that out to make it readable. But yeah, EVS was like, oh, this is like the SJWs, because like you can go to my Dark Harvest review on YouTube, and it has like less than 500 views, and he's in there arguing with people about they're like arguing with people with what they're saying about the review. And again, I've said this multiple times, the one review of a comic I've put out that Mike Partica has liked has been my Dark Harvest review, because I talk positively about the Rippaverse books, and of course I might as well be like I don't know, saying like the worst things ever. I'm not going to say them on YouTube. But when I reviewed Dark Harvest, he was like, "This is a good review." I'm like, "Yeah, finally." But yeah, it's just really sad because he's a great artist, Ethan Van Sciver. But it's just been such a crash out with the man. He's got a wife, he's got a young kid, and he's got a business that he really ought to be. He really ought to be like putting his time and effort into that, rather than spending, I don't know, at this point, Decent Chance is like a full-time job worth of hours on Trashcast. If that's what he wants to do, that's where priorities are, more power to him. I'm not going to stop him. It's not like I could stop him. But it'd be nice to have Cyberfrog Free and Rainbow the Brute, because I thought Rainbow the Brute I thought was a fun story. I remember back in like 22, I was like, do I have time to back Rainbow the Brute? I sent him a super chat. He's like, yeah, you want to, it'll be a while, but it'll be soon. But you do back it. I was like, oh, you'll have time, but do back it. And I used my tax return that year to get the lunchbox, which was supposed to be metal. It's probably going to be plastic now. I mean, this is assuming it ever is going to materialize, which I'm like, I don't know, I'm like 20/80 on it ever happening. And so we'll see. Let's see. Renowned Zero also backed Rainbow the Brute and Cyberfrog Free. Pretty sure he isn't backing All Caps as well, along with many others. That's how a lot of people feel. And it's like I said, it's not just the the trash casting against the Rippaverse. because there are people who don't like Rippaverse, think they'll like all caps. But it's just the fact that Eveman Skyver has not held up his end of the deal in the crowdfunding scene. And of course, you'll say you're investing in this, it could never materialize, but it's not the experience that people want to have when putting up their money to get comics, especially when you're trying to appeal to people who are in the mainstream or who would otherwise be going to the mainstream. Where I walk into my comic book shop, I see an issue of Spider-Man or Battle Beast or Transformers on the rack. I like that. Let me go and buy it. I walk out with the store. I can read it that day. Next month, the next issue comes out. That was the experience of people in the LCS. Now you're trying to convert them to saying, hey, support my project. And in 18 months to 5 years, you might have a book. And you got to pay $25 plus shipping for a book that's like, 40 pages or so. It's just, it's not a good sell to a lot of people. Now, of course, when you're buying indie, you're buying online, you're going to have to pay for shipping, and you're going to pay a little bit of a higher price. And people are willing to do that. There's Rippaverse's got its market. John made his 4 figures off of Heroic Tales. Rennie with Fiendish, Zay Comics. People are willing to spend a bit more money if you've got a good indie talent that is, actually cares about the fans. But but you have to actually put the product out in a timely manner, and you actually have to make it like seem like you care about getting the book out, which again, people with people in crowdfunding, just not a lot of people, but I would say people in crowdfunding, but there have been people who use crowdfunding as just a means to extract money rather than actually build a business off of it. And that's the unfortunate thing. And of course, you got like your boy Zach, who's like really crashed out against Rippaverse, and he's just so chronically unable to fulfill, which is sad as well. But yeah, that's the whole thing. And like I said, people who were fans of like all caps comics, and again, I like Cyberfrog. I'm going to be upfront with that, is that I'm not like this guy that like is going to be like, oh, Cyberfrog is complete garbage, it's dog water. It's not the best. It's drawn really well. Like I said, I think EVS is a great artist, which makes it really sad that he's so unproductive. I don't know what your boy Zach is doing. It is sad. But yeah, he's like, of course, I'm probably like half his age, but according to him, I'm a middle-aged Republican who's buying Detention Crew as culture war bonds because I'm a birthday party clown. But yeah, he had a lot of really good commentary about the comic book industry. This was when I was first getting into Comicsgate. This was like around 21, 22. So about 3 years ago or so is when first thing I backed from Comicsgate was the Narzak free pack, because he worked with Narwhal on those. And that was Is This You, POD, Payment on Delivery, and 499. I can't believe I remembered all of those. But yeah, the Narzak free pack. Narwhal is a fantastic artist. And he's also really productive, which is why those books actually materialized. But I did read Jawbreakers Forever. I did not wrap my head around that story. And a lot of people thought that book was bad as well. So I've got Grand Bazaar. I ought to read that. But a lot of people, think the first Jawbreakers book did really well, and it's been on the decline ever since. That's my understanding of it. And it's just so hard to get into a series like Jawbreakers or anything from Zach, because he's so bad at running Splatto Comics as like a business. It's just like a series of Indiegogo campaigns that never really materialize. And that's no way to run a business. And he's got a storied past with his adult film content, which is awkward. Of course, he was a Marine as well. So I don't know. He's just a bit of a mess, which is unfortunate, because I think he, like I said, he had a lot of great commentary, and I think he could be a good writer. He's written some pretty interesting stuff. I liked Pandemic, like the Theophany, whatever those. I reviewed those 3 books as like a overview, and I think they were interesting. Pandemic was the best. The other 2, if I remember, they were like no and such. But yeah. Anyways, let's see. I didn't think Cyberfrog was bad, but not worth waiting 5 years for. I agree. Zach praised ISOM 1 and 2. I remember this. He also praised Riversend as a potential good thing for indies. He also worked with Critical Drinker on that Rambo book. My guess Zach screwed up and is blaming his betters. Yeah, it does. It does seem to be the case. Is that like Zach really screwed the pooch on like I said, Swato Comics is not a good business. It's just a series of Indiegogo campaigns that never really materialize. And that's the state of his comic business. When you're in that situation and then you see, what Eric July is doing with Ripperson, what you see Rainey doing with Fiendish, you see all these people who are actually making comics work for them, like the indie comic scene work for them. When he was like one of the first ones that got into it, if he ran it more effectively, he could be king of the castle, man. But he just didn't. He just had no idea what he was doing. He put his full time into this, so he was putting his like career into this. And he thought he'd be in a much better position than he is now, and he just isn't. And of course, like he's probably past the age of 50, so a bit of a midlife crisis as well. So because I think when he calls for his fans like middle-aged Republicans buying culture war bonds, I think it's a bit of projection, right? And I'm, like I said, I'm 27, so I'm a pretty young guy. I'm going to be old one day. God willing, I live, my grandfather's age. He was 93. If I do, I'll be in his shoes one day, and I'll be staring down the barrel of being old and wrinkled. And I mean, I don't mind. The flesh is going to wither away. We only have so much time left on this earth before you pass away and you go on to the other side of eternity. There's nothing you can do about it. And I'm honestly looking forward to it at this point. I gotta drink some water. Sorry, guys. When you talk for over an hour, you got to do that. But yeah, he was really positive of ISOM 1 and 2. And then I think after that is when he was critical of the Rippaverse. Of course, he was like refusing to review Rippaverse books because it was too controversial for him. We got Emily Kruger in the chat. I know you're a subscriber of mine. This is the first time I've seen you in live stream, so really nice to see you. Hopefully you are having a fantastic Friday and end of the week as well. Or Friday, because it is Friday. Going to have a fantastic weekend, I hope. I got some stuff to do. But yeah, it's just nice. So let's see. Last Thursday, Critical Drinker talked about Saints and Sinners after Chris Gore showed off his book on live stream. He said it's a great feeling when customers actually receive the book they paid for. Yes, that is fantastic. And yeah, I liked all Saints and Sinners. It's good. It was a good one to read. Yeah, so it's as you see here. Emily, I think the first campaign or two were culture war buyers, but those people are gone now. The reverse customers are the actual fans. Yeah, ISOM 1 and 2 were cultural events. I got a lot of people really excited. But the people here now are like the hardcore invested Rippaverse fans. And of course, you've got the people who are doing the evergreen sales as well. So you got people who are getting into it. So you probably have a person who buys like a copy of ISOM, at this point, years after it runs, reads it and go like, well, it's okay, but I don't want to buy anything else from Rippaverse because it's just not my cup of tea. Now it's just going to happen. I know people who like buy like Gooding. I know there are people who got in on the $5 sale. And actually, let's see. It kind of seemed like a jab at Zach, who still haven't received their Rambo books. Yeah, it took me so long to get Rock and Roll Ninja. I don't think I got everything all the add-ons I backed with Rock and Roll Ninja. Rock and Roll Ninja is a good book. Matt Barr was a really good on the art on that book. Like the backgrounds, like chef's kiss. He really knew what he was doing with that book. And it's like, I'd love to read more Rock and Roll Ninja. But I would just love for them to get Zach like uninvolved in the project and just have Chuck and Matt do it. Because they would actually be able to get the book out. I would love Rock and Roll Ninja to be under the control of Chuck Dixon and Matt Barr and have them do it for Ripperson, because then I would actually get the book in a timely manner. It's just a high and low of it, because it's a good idea and it should be something that should like exist for the fans. But it's just not going to if it's published by Splato Comics, because Zach doesn't have any good business acumen. You just cannot be honest with the way he's ran Splatto Comics and say that he's good at running a business. And that's not to be mean to Zach or to like try to like rip him down, but it's just like the honest situation that he's in. And I think that's one of the reasons why he has all these crash outs that he has, because I think on some level he's aware of that. Let's see. Chuck has talked about doing something independent represent. I wonder what that will be. Yeah, that'd be really cool for him to do something for represent. Let's see. So Chuck expressed frustration with Zach not delivering the books he wrote years ago. Yeah, I can imagine so, because he got paid for it by Zach. So that's the one thing. But like, if you're a writer, and I've written stuff. I've written 3 books. And in fact, I can we've got if I can go to my Velvet Room Publishing, I can bring up the link, because like I said, I've written 3 books, and one of the things that I've always loved, as rare as this has happened to me, right here we can go full screen on this. This is the library. These are all the books that I've written. I've written 3 books, and whenever someone comes up, well, not comes up, but remember I was at Porkfest, and this was last year. Because I didn't sell that many copies of Machine Demand this year. I gave out a lot of copies of my gender ideology book to a bunch of people. In fact, I gave one out to one of my fellow parishioners, and she was like, "Oh, I'm halfway through it. I really enjoy it." Which that book, this book, guys, if you read this book, because you can read this book for free, like as a paid post, not as a free post to my Substack, and anybody who reads this book and gets like any sort of value from it, like I enjoy that, because I've lost. That's one of the reasons why I lost all semblance of sanity, is because I spent 18 months writing that book, and all during it, I was just trying to figure out if women have penises or not, and the answer was no. But just even like having these questions in my mind and doing all this research just drove me to like there are just thoughts that go through my head in ways I think about things that it's just never going to happen. It's been like over a year since I finished that book. I finished that book in April of 24. And like I'm still reeling over that, man. But it was something, it was worth doing. But it's like, oh, that was just something. But this is Machine to Man. And I remember with this book, I had someone, it was last year at Porkfest, come up to me. He had bought the book. He said, "I read it in a night. I really enjoyed it. Can you sign it?" And that just filled me with so much joy. So like as like a writer, you want people to read what you've written. It's part of the reason why you write. Is that you want people to get some sort of value from what you write. So if you write a script, getting paid for it is one thing that's nice, but if people can't actually access the work, then that's going to be frustrating. It's pretty insane that a Supreme Court justice couldn't define what a woman was. Yes, that's what Ketanji Brown. But I guess like the political commentary, it's not that they can't. It's that if they give any answer that conforms to reality, it's inherently exclusionary to the trans identity, which again it's verboten, to exclude on that basis. So if you say a woman's an adult human female, then this is exclusive to all. This excludes all of the men that want to become women. Of course, a lot of men. We got these straight men. Their wife has a kid, and then all of a sudden they just want to become their wife. It's really weird. So you've got all this stuff that goes on like that. And if you give any sort of hate speech, but again, I live in reality, Garfield. Okay, I refuse to give any more leeway to this nonsense. If you're born a man, you're born a man. Let's see. Yeah, they can't because of their in-group norms, not because they actually don't know the answer. Exactly. They've been conditioned to really not answer that question. It's not that they can't. It's not that they don't know. They remember whenever they talk about Planned Parenthood. But whenever they're talking about, like when they're asked that question directly, straight up, they'll dance around and not give an answer. Like, I'm not a biologist. So my mother could have had male genitalia. Who knows? Right. It's a patently ridiculous answer to anybody who lives in reality. But we stranglehold and held hostage all of society into like accepting this narrative, and people are tired of it. And the one guy who was going around college campuses trying to convince people of this very politely and calmly that this was all ridiculous, got shot for it. And this is the state that we're in, America. I hope you enjoy it because it's only going to get crazier from here. But anyways, that is a rant that is not at all related to the Detention Crew from the Rippaverse. But this is one of the reasons why I think it's just the nature of live streaming. Because like I've said this so many times that we've always got to chat. This stream thoughts into my head. And then, of course, my mind is just, it goes 20 miles a minute. So I'm always going to be saying stuff, talking about stuff. But yeah, this last live stream was like, even with Andrew on, it was like only like just under an hour. This like sometimes the time just flies by, man. And it's so nice to have everybody who is here. If you are on Twitter, check out the Substack. That's all I got to say. So I'll put this post like right here. So this is, like I said, my library right here. So I did add this on my Substack, call it the library. So all my long form work's going to be in one place because I realized when like trying to show people like, oh, this is a book that I've written. Oh yes, the Roman Empire segment of the stream. What should I talk about? Like the Eastern Roman Empire? Should I talk about? Oh no, Constantine's my patron saint, so I really need to like learn more because, Constantine was emperor of the East. I think he was able to reunify the West, and then right after that he legalizes Christianity because it's according to Eusebius, I'm saying his name correctly, of Caesarea, who wrote the historical account of Constantine's life, that he has the Pharaoh cross, he gets this vision, he puts it on his shield, and he conquers Rome. And he's able to reunify the empire as its leader. And then he founds Constantinople as the new Rome in Byzantium. That's, Anatolia, which is modern day Turkey. And he does that to be closer to, is it the Seleucids? I can't remember. But anyway, there were threats in the East that he's more concerned about than the Germanic tribes at the time. That was, later in the Roman Empire. And honestly, a little bit earlier, you had the Macromonic Wars, Marcus Aurelius, and let's see, 13 sales while you've been streaming. Let's see here. I'm assuming, yeah, we are at 758. Are you talking about the Detention Crew? Because I'm seeing it was at 750 and now it's at 758. So it seems like 8 sales, which is pretty cool. I would have loved 13 sales for my book because that would be like statistically significant for me. It'd be money in the bank, man. But I don't know. I'm so bad at marketing myself, and I'm not sure if you guys like. People don't like read novels anymore. The fall of Constantinople was a huge tragedy for Western civilization. At least Spain completed the Reconquista. Oh, it was 745. Yeah, I remember seeing it at 750. So yeah, that was pretty good. Let's see. Yeah, no, Constantinople's fall, but I talked to this a little bit, Garfield. It was an ongoing process. It really started with the decline of Byzantium, with the rise of the Islamic Empire, or the Islamic empires, I should say, or the caliphates. Like the Umayyads, the Abbasids. They conquered just so much of what was Rome. And we're not just talking about the Byzantine Empire, but they got into Spain, like you said. And you had the Reconquista, which that began in the 8th century, like the 800s or so, where you had the stand. I can never remember his name, but they were able to hold the line and prevent them from getting into France. Still think it would have been called Gaul at that time. And then it was just really slowly pushing back. And of course, it was in 1492. I'm not kidding. When the Reconquista was completed, and you had let's see. Is it Ferdinand and Isabella who, they united the kingdoms of Aragon and Castile, and they were able to conquer Spain, or reconquer Spain, I ought to say. And you had Al-Andalus. That was for the longest time, that caliphate in Spain, which is why there are a lot of Arabic words in Spanish. Like they'll have, I can't name any because I'm not a good Spanish speaker, but there are words in Spanish that come from Arabic. Because there's just centuries long melding of the cultures. Yes, the Muslims, they conquered a lot of places. They worked fast, but they weren't really good at keeping them. and they were really just subjugating a lot of the population because they didn't have the numbers to maintain. But the thing was also was with the Byzantines is that this was during the period, like the ending period of the ecumenical councils. So there are a lot of subjects of the Byzantine Empire that were basically excommunicated from the church and thus the society. So they were willing to pay the jizya, which is this is in the Quran. So if you get conquered by the caliphate, then you can either convert to Islam, be killed, or you pay the caliphate money and you get to be a second class citizen. And that was preferable to a lot of subjects at the time that were basically exiled from the Byzantine Empire to pay the Islamic caliphate the jizya rather than convert to, or rather than denounce their heresies, which they should have done. Because you had like the Miaphysites, you had Nestorians, you had probably Arians and Gnostics and Judaizers and all these sorts of people who should have repented, denounced the heresies, and helped the Byzantines be a bulwark against Islam. But it's just not how it worked. So yeah, Granada was the last caliphate holdout in Spain. I believe it was also called Al-Andalus, but Granada is probably like the last city, and that region was called Al-Andalus. But yes, it was southern Spain. Yeah, that was, and of course, was famously part of the Roman Empire. And Justinian in the 6th century was able to reconquer parts of the Western Roman Empire. It was parts of Spain. And that's really what did like the Byzantine Empire. Instead of like really solidly holding the East, they tried reconquering the West, and they got like Italy, which is pretty nice. But really what they ought to have done was just build up the East as much as they possibly could. Yeah, Justinian died like just before the rise of Islam. Yeah, and a lot of Arabic name towns in Andalusia. It comes from the fact that the Muslims were there for so long. There were the Moors. That's the ethnic group that they were. And of course, there was a time. This was a time where I was like around the 13th century, where you have the Ottomans. So you've got them in Spain in the west, or in the east, or in the west, I ought to say, with having parts of Spain, and then they had parts of Greece with the Ottoman Empire. So they had conquered Turkey because we talked about the fall of Constantinople, and they were conquering Greece. So you had like Christendom being this like little sliver in Europe, and then of course they were able to push back the Ottomans. They were able to reconquer Spain, and then of course the Ottoman Empire went on this very slow decline from its peak around the 1400s, and eventually it was dissolved in the 20th century, and that was the last caliphate, and then that's where modern day Turkey comes from. The more you know, guys. So it wasn't quite a Roman history, but it's just a general history of of course a Roman slant grant to it. But yeah, I think I ought to end it there because again I covered everything I wanted to on Detention Crew. Let's see. Yeah, Byzantine Empire. We can do the Crusaders deciding to sack the city instead of reclaiming the Holy Land. And one of the ladies. Oh yes, yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, the Crusades were justified because they were trying to conquer land that was part of Rome. But yes, the later Crusades they sacked Constantinople. This is at a time where there was a very deep schism or schism, however you want to say it, between the Latins and the Orthodox. Of course, I'm an Orthodox catechumen. I'm taking the side of the Orthodox on this one. But yeah, it was really scandalous what they did. And actually, fun fact, John Paul II was the first pope to visit Greece. And in order for him to get permission to visit Greece, he had to go on TV and apologize for, I believe it was the Fourth Crusade, because you have these Latin crusaders coming in, pillaging pillaging their churches, assaulting nuns on the altars, all sorts of like really heinous stuff that they did. And John Paul II had to apologize for that to go on pilgrimage in Greece. Yeah, fun fact. Yeah, it was the Cursed Crusade. Because these were Christians, of course, both schismatic. Of course, who you view as an apostate is going to depend on your, like, if you're, more sympathetic to Rome or the Orthodox Church. Of course, like I said, I'm an Orthodox catechumen, so I'm going to take the side of the Orthodox on this one. And if you just look the way the history went, I don't think that the Latins were justified in the later Crusades. Like the first one kind of worked for them. Yes, but yeah, nice to see Ram. Hopefully you have a good one. But yeah, the Crusades were mostly a failure. And of course, this whole idea of having warrior monks is really antithetical to monasticism, but that's a whole other discussion. But anyways, guys, enough talk about history. And of course, sorry if you guys enjoy that, I appreciate it. But like I said, Detention Crew is a cool story. I definitely think you guys ought to check it out, even if it's got that simplistic art style. But we covered just about everything. I'm going to, of course, talk about this in the recorded episode of Braxcast. So it'll be just covering all the basic information. Sans rant about Roman history, Comicsgate, or whatever else was crossing my mind this stream. But thankfully, you guys enjoy this one. Hope you guys have a good weekend. You stay blessed and you stay healthy. And make sure to drink lots of water, get sleep, and get that protein in. Advice from your friend Joker. But I am out. You guys have a good one.